I would defer to Mr. Carr. He is far more qualified than I to express the details and the nuances of some of these things. But the difficulty...
You understand the nuances very well, it sounds to me.
Well, you know, the difficulty for me is how do we move into Middle Eastern, you know, well, any country, wherein there's this tremendous cultural gulf between, you know, the United States, American soldiers, and the natives, but also tremendous gulfs between different groups, sectarian groups within these countries. Is it possible for us to make peace between Sunni and Shia? And if we can't make peace between Sunni and Shia, how can we, you know, how can we possibly govern those nations in a way that's in the long-term interests of the United States of America? Unless the answer is just a perpetual presence. And maybe that is the answer, you know. But the American people struggle with this because on the one hand, you know, we want to secure our interests. On the other hand, we don't want to be at war forever. And I almost feel like I need to apologize because I know I don't have a perfect answer for this. But one thing I do recognize is the fact is that I think the American people really need, whether we go in whole hog or whether we stay at home, the American people really need to be united on this. And there needs to be a message that can unite the different parts of the spectrum in terms of how we engage the wider world. Like I said, you know, there is a time to stand and fight. And, you know, Elan Carr actually might be the guy who can make the point in the way to where, you know, folks will understand the stakes. But it's incumbent for any and all of us running for office to be able to recognize both that there is right and wrong in terms of policy, but that we have to find a way to communicate it to the American people, which I think both Barack Obama and George W. Bush failed to do in many respects. That there's got to be a way to communicate the wisdom of some of these policies to the American people to where you not only have, you know, practically sound strategic decisions being made in the field, but we've truly galvanized the will of the American people. Whatever we do, that's what I want to see happen.
I have a quick question. Actually, we only have a few minutes. I'm sorry. We got to leave the room. I'm sorry. Actually, not going to have time. But you can get them on the way out. You can get them on the way out. Just practically for the sake of time, because they are going to send in the soldiers and boot us out. So, Mr. Carr, we actually have to do final remarks right there, right now. So, if you would lead the way, we've got 5 minutes to wrap it up, and then Mr. Wood, you can close the night.
Certainly. You know, we, as is appropriate, we've focused on a lot of problems and a lot of challenges and a lot of areas where we all understand and appreciate that America can be doing a lot better than we are doing. And that's appropriate because we're talking about making a better future. That's why we're running for Congress. But here's something very, very important. We have got to come together and reach across the aisle and compromise and move the country forward. And today, through all of these problems affecting us, education and the economy, and also we didn't talk about immigration. We talked about healthcare, but not immigration. All of these problems, and we look to our nation's capital in the frail hope of finding solutions. And what do we see? Hyperpartisanship and bickering and acrimony and an inability to craft solutions to any problems. I mean, you look at the VA. We talked about schools, but the VA, and there's so many examples of a general sense of decay that the government has lost the ability to provide services to people. And what is Congress doing about it? Well, they're fighting. That's what Congress is doing about it. And so my campaign and John's campaign, which is why I began by telling you how much I appreciate your approach, we're very similar in this way. It really, for us, is all about bringing people together. It's all about focusing on the vast oceans of common ground we all have and working through our differences. By the way, any two people have differences. You know, a married couple, you know, they have differences, but when you focus on the differences, the marriage ends. But when you focus on the common ground, you find that it's pretty easy to work through the differences. And as polarized as Congress is, in fairness to Congress, if we can be fair to Congress, America is polarized today. Our country, we're in a climate where people demonize each other for taking positions with which we disagree, and we've got to bring people together and focus on common ground for the sake of moving the country forward. And that's the name of the game. The name of the game is finding common ground, compromising, and fixing real problems that affect real Americans every day. And that's what I hope to do, and that's what John hopes to do together come November and then January.
Well, you get an amen out of me for everything that you've said. And, the practical excuse for me and Mr. Carr getting together here today and speaking with you guys is the fact that our districts adjoin in the city of Torrance. The 33rd gets Torrance to the west, and the 43rd gets Torrance to the east. But the real reason behind it is just the fact that,
We're good buddies.
I love this guy. And I love him not just because he's a nice guy, and not just because he's a smart guy, but because he is sincere in every word that he speaks. And I'm kind of a rookie at this political game, but I've been around it long enough to tell you that you get a whole lot of people in politics who talk out of both sides of their mouths. And it can be, politics is difficult because you get people who are on way different ends of the spectrum, and you want everybody to vote for you. A lot of times you want everybody to like you. You don't get into politics if you don't like people. At least not in my case. I'm sure in yours. But you have to maintain your integrity. You can't get pulled to one side or the other depending on what's popular, and yet you know that you have to lead people from every different side. Elan Carr inspires me because he has that wisdom, he has that understanding, and he has the character to stand for what he thinks is right and to not get his feelings hurt if somebody disagrees with him, and to not get mad about it either. And, I want to see that out of our elected officials, Democrat or Republican. But it's not just up to Congress, it's not just up to the politicians, it's up to you guys, really. I mean, before I started running for office, I was just a guy shouting at his TV. And I'm sure that, if you guys, if you're watching this at home or sitting here in the audience, I'm sure you can relate to that. Otherwise, you wouldn't be listening to me. But we all can do better, I think, relating to one another, understanding one another. Doesn't mean we're always going to agree, but to be honest, we don't have to agree 100% to make progress. We really don't. And you know who taught us that? The Founding Fathers. George Washington didn't believe in political parties. He was afraid that people would wind up governing more for the interests of their party than for the people. Oh, what a prophet, John Adams said at one point, he said, ideology is a systematic way for people to go wrong with confidence. Another time, he summed it up even better. Another time, he just said, ideology is the science of idiots, And what he meant by that is that we always go in error when we choose to follow any one way of thinking or other way of thinking in place of whatever the truth is, in place of going wherever the truth may lead us. And, there are interest groups, there are, media personalities, there are politicians, there are corporations, there are unions, there are so many entities and organizations and figures out there who have an interest in dividing the American people. But if the American people refuse to be divided, then they will have to follow us, not the other way around. And, to represent the people, you have to be one of the people. And I admit, I do not have all the answers. But one thing I can pledge to you is that I will work with all of my heart and all of my soul to bring out the best, not just in myself, but the people around me, whether they be elected officials or otherwise. Because I know that I need you far more than you need me. And so I'll try my best to be a member of your family, and right or wrong, to hold my head up with dignity and to do the right thing for the people of Los Angeles. Thank you so much. Thank you, buddy.
60 seconds to spare. All right, I do want to introduce to you Ted Gross. Ted, why don't you stand up, wave your wave. Get to know Ted. He's running for state assembly here in the area, and from last I heard, you're ahead of this deal. Is that still the case?
I hope so.
All right. Well, you know what? Get the facts. Go shake his hand. Get his business card. And thank you for coming, guys. Great evening.
People got to see you. You didn't think. Mr. Chase, thank you so much.
Also, we're so on the same page. It's
Yeah.
amazing.
Next time you talk education, don't forget parents.
Right.